Hi, boys and girls. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Mrs. Feustel, and we are going to continue to learn about personification and using personification in poetry. Your learning target today, I will review personification and understand how personification is used in a poem that describes a dandelion as a king. You will need your reader's notebook and a pencil. Let's review. Personification, giving human qualities to animals or objects. An example of personification would be the stars winked at me. Background knowledge. So today we're going to think a little bit about dandelions, and that is the topic of our poem today. What do dandelions make you think of? Do you think dandelions are a pretty flower or a weed? Do you know that dandelions spread very quickly, and they are often not welcome in many gardens and yards? Before we begin reading, there are some vocabulary words that might be helpful for us to understand before we read the poem. Haughty means having or showing a proud and superior attitude. Reign, the authority or rule of a king or queen. Coronation, a ceremony is in which a king or a queen is crowned. The poet uses o'er in place of over for the sake of rhyme. So there's some liberties that sometimes poets can take to help them write their poems or to help make the poem easier to understand or have a little more, like I said, a rhyme or a rhythm. So poets can often do that. So we're going to look at the poem. And before we do that, I want you to, as you're thinking about dandelions, you will make a prediction. Will the poem describe the dandelion positively or negatively? All right, boys and girls, some things that you might notice or have already noticed is there are tools in your Scholastic Storyworks magazine that might help you to really work with the poem to better understand it. You've got a highlighting tool here. You can draw and work with some of these. So you've got the eraser, the lines. If you want to draw a line under something, you can choose a color. Let's say I want to notice how many lines there are in the poem. I can do that. I can underline. I could also go into the highlight mode, which is, I'll get out of this, maybe highlight, and you can use different colors up here. Choose your colors and you can highlight, okay, if you like. There are some things, and then if you don't want that, or if you want to get rid of it, you can just go to the garbage can and that will remove, and then you can proceed. So sometimes this might be a little easier to use or to help you kind of get a better idea of the poem and to work with the poem. Since we're not working in person, we don't have a hard copy in front of us, this might be an option for you. All right, I am going to get rid of this, and then I'm going to go to my draw tool and get rid of some of the examples. So I'm going to use my eraser. Look at that. Well, it worked for me. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. All right, so the dandelion. I'm going to read this a couple of times because I think as readers, especially with poetry, it can be kind of hard to understand at first, especially if you don't catch on to the rhythm or the rhyme right away. Or sometimes they use words like haughty or coronation, and so I like to read it 2 or 3 times. The dandelion. O dandelion, rich and haughty, king of village flowers, each day is coronation time, you have no humble hours. I like to see you bring a troop to beat the bluegrass spears, to scorn the lawnmower that would be like fate's triumphant shears. Your yellow heads are cut away, it seems your reign is o'er. By noon you raise a sea of stars more golden than before. Now, I love how they use, I'm going to get rid of this. I love how in Storyworks a lot of times that they will have kind of a sidebar here. They will have like a little thing that will help us understand. Coronation is a ceremony in which a king or queen is crowned. Okay, that helps. And what does a lawnmower do to the dandelions? Well, I remember the lawnmower that would be like fate's triumphant shears. Oh, your yellow heads are cut away. So basically the lawnmower cuts off the dandelion, and it seems that the reign is over, or that there will be no more dandelions. But of course, with dandelions, they just kind of pop up, they keep growing, and of course you see them a couple of days later. So it seems like the reign is over, but by noon you raise a sea of stars, more golden than before. All right, I'm going to reread this again. O dandelion rich and haughty, the king or king of village flowers. Each day is coronation time. You have no humble hours. I like to see you bring a troop to beat the bluegrass spears, to scorn the lawnmower that would be like fate's triumphant shears. Your yellow heads are cut away. It seems your reign is over. By noon you raise a sea of stars more golden than before. I love it. All right, or and before, I think they use that so that they kind of, for a rhyming. It seems your reign is o'er. By noon you raise a sea of stars more golden than before. So, personification, we're looking for that. This poem describes the dandelions as if it's a person. What kind of a person is it? Probably a king, a haughty, rich king, and kind of a know-it-all. And they think the coronation, every day is a coronation because every day the dandelion keeps growing. And they have no humble hours, which means they never go away. They keep working and they're always growing. So that's a neat poem, the dandelion. So to me, it seems like the author of this poem has a kind of an admiration for the dandelion in a way. As much of a nuisance as they are to some people, the author seems to think, well, it's rather funny how they just, as hard as a person may work to get rid of this dandelion or this king, it's not very easy. Okay, let's go back and take a look at the questions that we are to answer. So class, you noticed that I read the poem 3 times, maybe even more than that, and went over it just to kind of get an idea. Sometimes what I like to do is I like to read the poem once, and then I'll have to read it again, and it seems to be a little bit better because I'm more familiar with the words and the pattern and the rhyme and the rhythm of the poem. And then sometimes if I really want to practice my reading, I'll read it in a different voice. I might use a southern voice just to make it a little bit more fun or exciting. Maybe an opera voice, oh dandelion, rich and haughty. You can read it in poetry in fun ways too, and that makes it a little bit, it helps with your fluency, and it makes it more exciting also and fun. All right, so let's take a look at the questions. What kind of person is the dandelion described as? Which words and lines in the poem tell you this? Well, the dandelion is described as a king. And if you remember, the second line calls it king of village flowers. It has a coronation and it brings a troop as a king would have an army. What does the lawnmower do to the dandelions? What happens next? How do you know? Well, the lawnmower cuts off the heads of the dandelions, seeming to defeat the troop, but the dandelions grow back quickly. And the last 2 lines say, you raise a sea of stars, more golden than before. This refers to the many golden dandelions looking like stars that arise after being mowed. So, what is this poem really about? What is the main idea? Many people view dandelions as weeds, a bad thing, but the author in this poem compares dandelions to kings. The author compares dandelions to kings because they are both important and difficult to get rid of. Dandelions rule or have control over the garden or yard just like a king rules over his kingdom. All right, boys and girls, a little bit of review today, practicing reading poetry. And thank you so much for your time. During your IDR time, I want you to try to identify examples of personifications in the poems that you read. And have fun with the reading. You read it 2 or 3 times. Use different voices. It helps you better understand the poem, and it helps with fluency. So enjoy, have fun. Thank you so much for your time. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.